What happens when one of Hollywood's biggest legends walks onto a morning show set and refuses to play by the rules? What you're about to witness is one of the most intense moments in live television history. Kevin Costner, a man who has built his career on authenticity and unfiltered honesty, stepped onto the Good Morning America stage for what was supposed to be a simple promotional interview. But from the moment he sat across from Michael Strahan, something in the air shifted, subtly at first, then unmistakably, like the slow tightening of a storm cloud waiting to erupt. The studio buzzed with its usual polite chaos. Producers adjusted headsets. Assistants whispered last-second notes. And the audience settled into their seats, expecting light conversation and friendly banter. Michael wore his trademark smile, the polished, camera-ready grin that had made him a morning show icon. Kevin leaned back in his chair, calm, composed, carrying the steady confidence of a man who had spent decades in front of cameras. When the show went live, everything appeared normal. Michael greeted him warmly, welcoming him back and easing into the conversation with practiced professionalism. But the tone shifted the moment he asked the first pointed question, whether Kevin returning to the Western genre was simply retreading old ground. The words hung in the air longer than intended, as if everyone felt the temperature drop a few degrees. Kevin's expression tightened, just slightly, but enough for anyone paying attention to feel the tension coiling beneath the surface. His reply was calm, measured, but carried an unmistakable edge. Michael, unaware that he had struck a nerve, pushed further, comparing Kevin's new project to his past classics. That's when the first crack appeared. Kevin challenged him directly, questioning the framing of the question, the intention behind it, and even whether Michael fully understood the project he was discussing. The audience leaned in. The crew froze. Michael attempted to recover with a laugh, but it felt hollow, like a man trying to pretend a fire isn't spreading behind him. When Kevin suggested the question came from producers looking for a headline, the mood shifted from uncomfortable to electrifying. What was supposed to be a routine segment had evolved into a showdown, one that neither man had planned, but both were now fully engaged in. And as the cameras kept rolling, it became increasingly clear this was not going to be another safe morning show interview. Something raw, something real had been stirred, and it wasn't going to settle quietly. The studio, moments earlier buzzing with polished energy, now held an unfamiliar stillness. Michael Strahan tried to steady the conversation, but Kevin's challenge had already punctured the surface. The mask of cheerful television banter was gone, revealing something deeper. Two men grappling not just with an interview, but with the meaning of integrity, preparation, and respect. Michael attempted to move the conversation forward, but Kevin wasn't finished. He spoke with a sharpness that wasn't hostile, but firm, an artist defending the weight of his craft. He pointed out that storytelling about the American West wasn't repetitive. It was foundational. These weren't just Westerns. They were meditations on morality, sacrifice, and the roots of the nation itself. Reducing them to retreading old ground was, in his eyes, not only dismissive but lazy. Michael stiffened. For the first time, his composed posture faltered. He insisted he meant no disrespect, claiming he was voicing what some people were saying. That's when Kevin leaned in, delivering the line that made even the camera operators hold their breath. Some people, or the producers who wrote that question on your cards. The tension hit a new level. Michael laughed again, but this time the discomfort was undeniable. Kevin pressed on, saying morning shows had become assembly lines, churning through guests with surface-level questions crafted more for viral clips than meaningful conversation. Michael's jaw tightened. His voice rose. He defended his professionalism, his history, his respect for every guest who sat across from him. Kevin didn't yield. He wasn't angry. He was resolute. He questioned not Michael's character, but his preparation. Respect, he said, is doing your homework. Michael's defensiveness grew stronger with each exchange until finally he stood up from the desk, an unmistakable sign that the confrontation had struck something personal. But Kevin remained seated, a calm center in the storm, almost as if the studio floor itself belonged to him now. He spoke about truth, about complacency, about how people in powerful positions tend to fall into patterns of comfort. He told Michael he was better than this, that he had the potential to be more than a smiling host reading cue cards. The words landed with surprising force. Michael, stunned, sank back into his chair. The audience watched in silent awe, witnessing television not as entertainment, but as revelation. Kevin had forced the conversation into honesty, and in doing so, forced Michael to confront something within himself. Silence settled over the room. Not the awkward kind, but the heavy, transformative kind. The kind that signals the beginning of something real. Michael took a slow breath, as though grounding himself. Then, unexpectedly, he shifted. The defensiveness faded. The smile disappeared. And for the first time since the segment started, he looked less like a TV personality and more like a man genuinely ready to engage. "All right," he said. "Let's do it your way. Tell me what I should have asked." It was a surrender, but also a challenge, an acknowledgement that if Kevin wanted the conversation elevated, he was willing to climb with him. Kevin paused, studying him, as if checking for sincerity. Then he sat forward and began explaining the heart of his new series. He spoke of leaving Yellowstone, of walking away from guaranteed success because he didn't want to repeat himself, not in story, not in purpose. He spoke of the courage it takes to start something new, something meaningful, in a world obsessed with trends, algorithms, and instant gratification. This wasn't promotion. This was confession. And Michael listened, really listened. His eyes reflected a new depth, a curiosity unforced and unpolished. Kevin dove into the story. Two brothers forced onto opposite sides of the Civil War, one fighting for freedom, the other for home. He explained the emotional fractures, the moral contradictions, the painful nuances that made the story worth telling. He spoke not in sound bites, but in truths, refusing to simplify the complexity of human conflict. He emphasized that understanding a character's motivations isn't condoning them. It's acknowledging the humanity behind their choices. Michael absorbed it all. His follow-up question surprised even the audience. Thoughtful, incisive, and challenging. He referenced a scene where the brothers meet on the battlefield, an encounter thick with tension, grief, and the weight of lost years. He asked how Kevin approached such a moment without reducing it to cliches. Kevin's expression softened. This was the conversation he wanted. He explained how the scene was the emotional core of the entire series. The moment where ideology fades and blood ties resurface. The battlefield becomes irrelevant. What matters is the bond that war had torn apart. The crew, who moments earlier had frozen in uncertainty, now watched with fascination. The confrontation had birthed something rare on morning television: authenticity. Two men shedding their polished personas and engaging in a dialogue that actually meant something. What had begun as a clash was now evolving into a powerful exchange. Michael leaned in, fully present, asking about the emotional weight of the story, the themes of division and reconciliation, and why Kevin believed this was the right time to tell such a narrative. Kevin answered with passion that filled the studio, describing how the parallels between the Civil War and today's fractured society couldn't be ignored. Families torn apart, ideologies clashing, people forgetting to see each other as human. His series was not just entertainment. It was reflection. Michael nodded, this time not as a host, but as someone genuinely moved. He acknowledged his earlier missteps, admitting he should have been more prepared, more thoughtful. The honesty of his confession struck the audience deeply. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't polished. It was real. Kevin didn't gloat or soften. Instead, he leaned into the moment with clarity. Growth, he said, comes not from flattery, but from friction, from challenges, from being forced to confront truths we'd rather overlook. The same principle applied to storytelling, journalism, and life itself. Michael listened with a quiet humility that made the moment even more compelling. When he finally spoke, his voice carried sincerity rarely seen on live morning TV. He thanked Kevin not just for the conversation, but for pushing him, for refusing to let the interview stay shallow. It was a moment of mutual respect forged through conflict. Kevin shook his hand firmly, acknowledging Michael's willingness to engage once the walls fell. The audience erupted into genuine applause, the kind that doesn't just fill a room but validates it. They had witnessed something far greater than an interview. They had witnessed transformation. Two public figures stepping out of the roles assigned to them and into a conversation that mattered. Michael turned to the camera, not with a host's smile, but with grounded conviction. He spoke about Kevin's new series, describing it as something powerful, something necessary. something that challenges viewers to confront the complexities of humanity. His words weren't promotional, they were earned. As the segment ended, Kevin stood, nodding once toward Michael before walking off stage. There was no tension now, only a silent acknowledgement of the journey they'd taken in front of millions. A journey from conflict to understanding, from discomfort to depth, from performance to truth. And as the lights dimmed, the studio carried an energy rarely felt on live television, an energy that only appears when two people, against all odds, choose honesty over comfort and authenticity over spectacle.